Welcome to a celebration at the precipice of time, where the power of women knows no bounds. Experience her story unfolding, a reawakening of our collective consciousness to the monumental achievements of our foremothers, a tribute to the battles they fought, rights they've secured, and paths they've paved that women all over the world are continuing to navigate and expand upon. Her stories are unfolding, empowering growing, building legacies of pioneering women by sharing their stories, celebrating their accomplishments, and embracing the rights and privileges they've bestowed to us for generations to come. Hello, everyone, and happy International Women's Day. Today is March 8th, 2026, and it is such a beautiful day because today we celebrate the imprint of women on society, women that have laid the groundwork and the path over the years for us to be here in this moment, and women leaders that are continuously effectuating change that will continue to have impact moving forward. It is such a delight to be here with you today on this very special day as we take you down a little bit of a history of her stories unfolding, which are the stories of many women, the collective stories and the individual stories of women who have had such an impact on our community, our culture. I'm Alicia Magnus Lewis, sitting here with
Ava Manuel
and Paris Rose.
And today, tune in to Her Story Unfolding. So today's a very special day. And today we kicked off the day highlighting 10 women CEOs to watch in 2026. And it's such a special initiative by the Los Angeles Tribune to recognize women of all ages. The youngest is how old, Ava?
14 years old.
She's 14 years old and she's a budding CEO. And we hand selected this list of women and are spotlighting and highlighting their stories in Las Vegas, in New York, and a special feature. So Ava, would love for you to share, what was it about the top 10 women CEOs to watch in 2026? Because we're not just spotlighting them today. We are going on a journey to follow them all throughout 2026.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm very, very inspired with women who really step out and really give their best to how they serve and how they create. And actually, this 14-year-old is one that inspired the idea of this top 10 women CEOs to look out for because, she's only 14. She's got a makeup brand and she's already been invited in the gifting suites of is it Emmy, right?
The Emmys, and that's where I met her last year.
Yes, and then she was also in, she's invited this year in both Oscar and Emmy, and she's only 14 years old. And so, I feel like, for you being a queen of storytelling, who's also like someone who loves, to put people's stories together. This is amazing because as we see people whose stories are powerful, we want them to be an inspiration for others. Yeah. One of the other CEOs that we're also highlighting is an 18-year-old who's now, he's an inventor, and she's designed her own cup and selfie phone holder. Yeah, Alyssa Dawn, and it's amazing because now they're taking it to all of the different parts of the country, and she's being very creative with the way she's marketing it. So they're just really amazing women CEOs. And what's really lovely about this is by the end of the year, we wanted to be able to look back and see what was 2026 in year-end review look like. And they're actually very excited because, for example, Daniela Truffin, who's also one of the top 10 CEOs to look for, she said, "Oh my gosh, this is holding my feet to the fire." I am definitely going to make this my biggest year ever because there's accountability, because I am someone to look out for, and so this is what this is about, the top 10 women CEOs to look out for.
And I think that's so good because, every year, International Women's Day, it's a global moment to recognize women who are changing industries, communities, and culture. But the significance goes well beyond March 8th. It's a celebration, but it's actually historically, it's rooted in labor and activist movements dating back to the early 20th century, where International Women's Day has long stood as a way to recognize women's achievement, but it's also a call to expand equity, visibility, and opportunity. And that history is reminding us that leadership comes in many different forms. It's not about an age. It's about
Right.
impact. It's about creation. It's about access, and it's about a voice. And that's who gets to be seen, heard, funded, trusted, and
Absolutely.
followed. And that is what Her Story Unfolding has always been about. It's about the fact that the story is continuing to unfold.
Absolutely. Well, this story actually came together in 2022 and was published in 2023 with the first women's edition of the Special Thought Leader edition. And this women's edition is amazing because we actually studied women throughout history who were not given the recognition that they deserve. They did the work, but they were not part of the credits of the Nobel Peace Prize. They were not part of the financials that came out of it, but they were the backbone of the work. And so these are the women that we studied through 4 pages of the newspaper. We wanted to be able to give them the credit that they deserve, that they haven't gotten throughout the years. And so this evolved into a whole month broadcast in 2024. And last year, it evolved into many other things, from movies to international film festival to journals. Like it evolved into a lot of things. And so here we are now in 2026, and their story is still unfolding.
Her stories are still unfolding.
There's one I'd love to actually feature and highlight right now, and it comes from our film festival from last year. And we had a female filmmaker she's from Australia, but she's actually from Iran. And she created this incredible film based on the story and the life of a girl, a young woman who was arrested by the really oppressive and brutal regime security forces, and ultimately spent significant time in prison, and then ultimately went and relocated to a new country. But the film followed her whole journey, and it was an honest journey, I would like to say. Not, I can say from my own experiences, but I would like to say from those that I know in very similar situations. It was a very raw and honest storytelling on Azita. Azita Damadan is her name, the filmmaker who created this film. She did an incredible job. And I'd love to say that it was an honor to be able to watch the film and to be able to feature it at the film festival. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know about the film entirely or too much before we screened it, because we had many films that we had in our film festival. And upon watching it, I was blown away, and I was so grateful that I got to be there to conduct the interview after, and then connecting with her since then.
Yeah.
And with all of what's going on in Iran right now, I felt like it was so special that she put her art, her work out there to share a message, to tell a story, a factual story, but to help create connection for those that were watching the film. Because I think that a lot of what we get to do, even if you're not a storyteller or you don't view yourself as a storyteller, we all experience connection in different ways. And in her film, I felt the connection was so real, so raw, and so authentic to what she wanted to portray and, let the world know about.
And I think this is why you're so good at this story. It's because, like, even as you tell this story, I could tell that it really, has. It's not just head knowledge. It really has dropped into your heart. It's touched you and moved you in a big way.
Absolutely.
And it requires someone who can feel that, who can experience a story in such depth to actually really be able to tell great stories.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Lava. Thank you.
And that's what is so beautiful about just the whole theme of Her Story Unfolding, and about women leaders and leadership. It comes in so many different ways. It's through storytelling, it's through business, it's through innovation, it's through showing up as a family member, a friend, a sister, a mom, an aunt, a colleague. It's oftentimes about showing up, but also owning your voice. And what's so beautiful about the LA Tribune Film Festival was an extension of storytelling in its many forms. Is there were so many women directors and cinematographers and women empowerment, also activists, stated films. And when I say activist, the activism was rooted in a woman owning her story and telling her story, right? And I think that is, when we think about what does it mean to celebrate International Women's Day? Yes, we're celebrating women that are achieving, that are creating businesses, that are scaling and having impact. But it's truly a celebration of ownership of being a woman, of being a young girl, of living through experiences, of holding on to your voice, of having the grace to accept all that you've been through, of being open to all that is, and of saying, today I see you. Like, today I see you, I recognize you, I celebrate you, I honor you. And that is something that is really, really beautiful about women's storytelling. I mean, here at the Los Angeles Tribune, we have the Los Angeles Tribune Women's Journal that in many ways is an evolution of HerStory Unfolding, where for every day for a month, we recognize different women, and we were recognizing them through the work that they're doing, their impact, through awards, but also celebrating them, that an idea became a creation.
And beyond celebrating and beyond awarding, and we were actually going into the different events to support women. We've supported the LA Tribune, the LA Fashion Closet, on the Women's Month of 2024. We've celebrated, Dr. Emily Letran, who was having the movie premiere at that time,
The Fragile Flower.
Yeah. So not only were we on studio celebrating women, but we were also out and about
in the field. Women at the NAACP Image Awards, celebrating their recognitions there. And it was really about saying we see you, but showing up in the spaces where they're at, like literally meeting people where they're at. And there's something to be said about when you meet people where they're at. And that's what is so beautiful about this day. There have been so many phenomenal women that we have had the opportunity to stories to amplify. A woman that comes to mind for me is Deepika Sandhu. She is the author of a book called Hello Universe, It's Me, How I Scheduled a Breakdown to Manifest a New Life. And she has since launched a publishing company. It's one of the largest growing independent publishing companies in North America. And it's all about storytelling and sparking souls around the world. And, earlier this year, we did an author showcase, Authors to Watch, in 2025. And, when I look at Deepika's journey, even over the last 2 years, it's about owning your space, stepping into the unknown, not being sure where you're fully going, but having that framework, but also knowing that you're being called for impact.
And that's okay.
And that's okay. Right. And I think that's like the whole premise of her book, Hello Universe, It's Me, right? Yeah. It was taking a pause in a moment to say, where am I at? What am I trying to do? What am I trying to create? And then stepping into that with community that supports you over time. And, there are so many women that we can shout out. Ava, who is an impactful woman that you have either worked with recently or whose work that has really stood out to you that you really just want to talk about?
I'm smiling because 3 people come to mind.
3? Okay.
3 people come to mind. Well, the first one, since we've been talking about the Los Angeles Tribune Film Festival, well, there were 2 women that we actually recognized and awarded during the HerStory Unfolding of 2024. One of them is Dr. Emily Letran, who became, after that, and we came to the premiere, became a partner of the Los Angeles Tribune as the executive producer or executive publisher of the Vietnamese Journal. And it evolved to the Medical Journal, and then it evolved to an international film festival, which has served so much, served so many, especially in third world countries that didn't have, a lot of resources to be able to get their films out there, especially indie films, right? To be able to nominate their film in the LA Tribune Film Festival, because we're impact based, it's impact based, and based on the societal impact that the film is creating. It is such a wonderful evolution. The second thing is now our Rise of the Lioness. We featured and awarded also Donna Campbell, who's now our director, executive producer of the LA Tribune Films. And oh my gosh, you just gotta look out for all of the films that are coming out on the LA Tribune Films, because Donna Campbell is crushing it.
And Rise of the Lioness, it's really about the rise of feminine leadership, and it's a woman. It's a film that chronicles the paths and stories of so many women across ages, across fields, and across life experiences. And that's set to come out, produced by LA Tribune Films, at the end of 2026. And it goes to show what happens when you celebrate, but when community comes together and alignment and impact comes together. And so, that is what Her Story Unfolding is about, but
Mhm.
that is what International Women's Day is
Yeah,
about,
right.
right? It's about recognizing the individuals, the women that started to lay the foundation groundwork, whether they knew they were doing it or not. I think that's so much
Right.
the beauty about impact is you don't necessarily know you're making an impact when you're doing it. You're just showing up. You're seeing a need, you're showing up. You have something on your heart, on your spirit, on your mind, you create. You don't know where it's going to land,
Yeah.
but you know that there's something in you that you want to push forward, and you show up. And what happens when seeds are planted,
Right.
and that expansion and that evolution happens. For you, Parisa, who's another woman that you've either worked with recently, just been inspired by their work that you really just want to recognize and highlight today?
Well, with this young woman, it leans completely into what you just said about showing up. Like there's an opportunity here, you show up. There is I will allow her to remain nameless here for this broadcast, but there's a 13-year-old we had at one of our Barnes & Noble at the Grove in LA, our events that we had there. And all throughout the year, we have events there. We have authors come in, different speakers, have a moment to share their work, share their thoughts. It's honestly been a really special time, I think, for all of us to be there and be present. And so this 13-year-old girl, she had an opportunity to be interviewed on the red carpet. And she didn't know that was going to happen. It was definitely sprung up on her, but that was also kind of the point, is to just show up as you are. And she did a few minute long interview, and that one interview, it went well. It really did. And I got to see her just completely light up. And that interview then led to her participating in competing in Miss Teen Achieve. I believe it was the next month or 2 months after that.
Wow.
So to be able to compete in a pageant and that not necessarily be on your radar, I've never competed in a pageant, but I know this one has.
Yes, she has.
That it's an experience that challenges every part of you that you hadn't necessarily exercised yet. And I say this without having the experience, and I'll let Ava chime in on this in a sec. But to allow and to have an opportunity where you say yes. So she said yes to that interview, and she didn't have to technically, right? But then she had this other opportunity, this secondary opportunity to do this pageant after that. And she dove like headfirst into it. And it may not necessarily feel like it means something yet, because we never know what something's going to mean sometimes until way later on. But to then be able to have witnessed that, and to not know what's going to happen in 10 years, but to know that like seeds were planted then at that moment. I can't wait to see what happens, from here on out. But I would love for you to shed some light on the challenge and the willingness when you show up to a pageant to prepare for a pageant, really, what that entails.
Yeah. So first, let me tell you the motivation for the pageant when I went for Mrs. Nevada America. I had that on my bucket list since I was like 15, 16 years old, but I made myself, have my first child at 17. So that kind of like way on the wayside. And I was a mom full time and working and being a mom for 31 years. And that's still in the back burner. It's one of those things that you wanted, but you never accomplished. So I have a screenshot of an application. And every year I tell myself, I'm not ready. I'm not good enough. And last year, when iCloud generously reminded me,
you have to love those iCloud memories. They always show up, and you're like, wait a minute.
Generously reminded me of the screenshot that I took around that time when registrations are up to be submitted for Mrs. America. I said, I'm not ready. I'm not good enough. But then that time, a voice came up within me that said, where else in your life do you vote yourself not ready and not good enough?
Oof.
Because how we do one thing is how we do everything,
Absolutely.
right? Like it's an energetic frequency.
Yeah.
Like if we're in the frequency of hesitation, we hesitate everywhere else.
Yes.
Where if we're in the history, in the energy vibration of, and this is science, this is not woo-woo. If you're in the scientific frequency of generosity, you're generous everywhere. Also, if you're in the frequency of lack, you feel lack everywhere. So I noticed that I was like voting myself not ready, not good enough, and I said, where else in my life do I do that? Well, I freaking do it everywhere. Like I could literally see the traces of it everywhere. I hide behind people. Yes, I love to elevate others, but why don't I do it for myself? Like I write news for others. I put people on the stage. I put them on I've never written a news article with myself. Like, but why not? But that reveals how what's behind my actions and my decisions was because I was voting myself not ready, not good enough. So when I saw that, I said, that gets to stop today.
Oh, that's powerful.
Yep.
So I filled out that registration and I submitted it. And then when they called me back, I was trying to get out of it.
Yep.
I lost the moment of courage when I said that gets to stop today.
Yeah.
However, the preparation was, I said, the most difficult thing. Once you say yes to yourself, and it's not so much about winning, it's so much about being a yes to yourself. Because I got to a point where I was just tired of disqualifying myself. And so once I voted myself yes, everything else is a process. The hardest part is learning to walk in high heels.
Oh yeah.
I think you got an advantage on that.
It's not challenging for me, but
that is the hardest part. I fell twice. I scraped my knee. I had, I pretty bruised myself up, learning to walk. What's the hardest part? So you've got a leg up on me.
I'm not doing a pageant though.
But it shows it shows the level of stepping up and choosing to be seen and choosing to be heard. And I think history is filled with remarkable women whose influence shaped science, politics, culture, human rights, but whose names may be faded from the mainstream narrative or whose impact may have been known in terms of what they created, but not because the narrative was on them, not because the spotlight was on them. And there are several powerful women whose impact was profound, but often underrecognized, right? And I think that's why days like International Women's Day, Women's Month are so important, because they can highlight women who have made an impact, right? And it's like, if on any other day, this is the day we're going to highlight these women, but it's like on any day we should highlight them. And so, a couple of them are Rosalind Franklin. She was alive in the 1920s to 1958. Her X-ray crystallography images, especially photo 51, were critical to discovering the double helix structure of DNA. And talk about how impactful that is. Or there was Xian Xiong Wu, who was around and living in 1912 to 1997. And they called her the first lady of physics. And she was a Chinese-American experimental physicist whose work proved that a key law of physics was parity conservation was wrong, right? And so her experiments in 1956 revolutionized particle physics, right? And imagine how much we use that in now. And, a lot of physicists consider her work to be one of the most significant Nobel omissions in society, right? And so if her history is not brought forward, the impact will be known, but what about the woman, right? And so I think it's important for us to talk about women that have inspired us and why.
Because it creates a connection.
It creates a connection, just like you were talking about that young 13-year-old woman who was interviewed by a woman who was wearing a crown, and she saw herself in a different way. And that inspired her to want to go along with her path. Like, that is really what it's about. And there was Bessie Coleman. She was alive in 1892 to 1926, and she was the first Black woman pilot and the first Native American woman pilot. U.S. flight schools refused to admit her because of her race. So what did she do? She was inventive and creative. She learned French and she traveled to France to earn her pilot's license in 1921. And she performed aerial stunt shows and advocated for racial equality in aviation. And I think sometimes, like, when the path is shut off for you, you find a way to create your own. When you realize that you've been elevating people, you say, what can I do to put that light on me in a unique way that also is tied to your dreams that you had innately within you.
Right.
And I think that's what it's about. I think when you think about, I said it before, but like her story unfolding, what does that actually mean?
Right.
It means the confidence in yourself. It means thinking creatively about what comes next. It means allowing yourself to be open and receptive to moments that you never know may impact and change the trajectory of a moment in your life, or maybe even your life, right? One conversation, a 2-minute conversation. It means giving people their flowers when they're here to receive them, right? There's so much that goes into it. There are so many women in culture right now that have just gone their path. I think about Emma Grede. I don't know if you both are familiar, but she's such an impactful force in culture and in fashion, with Good American Jeans and Skims, and she's from England, London, and she has a phenomenal podcast. But she just talks about learning her skill sets and being creative and going along her path. And her story is so fascinating to see how she evolved in the marketing agency, ultimately fashion design world, how she had ideas and she boldly stepped into them, how she collaborated with people along the way. There's so much to learn from her journey. There's a very special episode that she did with her husband. And it talks about their relationship and partnership and collaboration along her journey and his journey. And he's the CEO of Skims with Kim Kardashian. And I think it just shows you that, like, what happens when you step into who you are, but also what happens when you step into collaboration and into community.
Right. I want to jump on that really quick. I think she is also a great person that really like exemplifies the grace of women, but also the fierceness and her willingness to own both. And really having a great understanding of herself of when to own what. And I'm not going to say what the balance is, but what the harmony is within herself. Because if you just look at her and then you listen to her talk and then you take a step back and you look at the businesses she has helped build from the ground up, there's nothing short of phenomenal there. Like she is hands down phenomenal. In the special edition, our women's special edition a few years back, we had an article on Kim Kardashian and her business empire, and she's 100% involved in that. So it is so intertwined. It is so connected, and you can be successful as a woman with the softness and the grace and also the fierceness. You don't have to be one or the other. You get to be both because we are naturally both. We all have different elements of us that are just naturally there. Sometimes we're a lot more gracious and soft, and sometimes we're a lot more fierce. And it might make a lot more people uncomfortable, but I think we get to give ourselves the permission and other women the permission to find what that is and what the harmony is.
Well, I'm going to bring it to today because I know we're talking about historical women, but part of the reason that I was really like I was like engulfed by the fascination of how much women have become the backbone of research, of typing, of drawing, of doing all of the laboratory work, but was reduced to secretary, chief of staff, laborer, housewife, and was never given credit for the work that they've done. And that still happens today.
It does.
It does still happens today. It's that, we hide women behind secretary roles, researcher, like I said, chief of staff, different associate roles who do the work and don't get the credit because they are compensated minimally for the intellectual property that they create. And so it's important for us as women to be in conversation because when we're not in conversation with each other, we normalize those things and we think it's normal and it's okay.
Right. It's the isolation that you're talking about, right? Isolation is problematic on a lot of levels, but
and I think that's why days like today, International Women's Day, are important to have open conversations. And I think we're seeing is that more and more women's communities, schools are having open conversations and not keeping things, inside and within. And it helps you become a better leader, business person, community partner, collaborator, better in relationships, the more you can be expressive. And if we look at history and we look at culture, that expressiveness, that authenticity of experience, it's really shining through. I think if we think about some of the leaders that we highlighted as part of the top 10 women CEOs to look out for in 2026, I mean, many of these women are authors. If we look at Jeanette McDermott, or we look at Daniela Trufant, or we look at Samara Beth, they're all authors, right? They're all, and what does it take to be an author? You have to reflect on something deeply, right? You have to be a voice. Per se, you're a Grammy nominated author, right? No. And so but that reflection, that authenticity to say and to pour into what has my experience been and to share it, right? Samara Beth talks about branding and how branding is beyond the logo. Jeanette McDermott takes people down a spiritual journey and a path, a pilgrimage. Daniela Trufant takes people down her own path of abundance, right?
Made for more.
And it's called Made for More, and how she really built her abundance mindset, right, over time. But all of that is them telling their stories too, right? Do you get to a point where you can tell a story when you haven't lived it? I think there was a time when you could have, but I think now people are looking for that authenticity, that transparency, or that understanding of the knowledge of where it's coming from, that depth, right? Because it's a very loud world right now. And so, people are looking for that depth. So there are so many amazing women that we at the Los Angeles Tribune have championed, all right, that we are advocating for. But today, in particular, on International Women's Day, is about celebrating women all around the world, those that have a voice and are using it, those that have a story within them and are afraid to share it, those that are living in oppressed places and spaces and are not allowed to use their voice, those that are using their voice and are fearful for what may happen if they do, right? Like the woman experience is complex. It has a lot of depth. It has a lot of breadth to it, but we get to hold space for it, right? Because it's not one story. It's everyone has a story, and the way it gets expressed differently, and the way it has impact. But today, the message is: we see you, we hear you, you are loved, you are seen. Your experiences, your stories, they truly do matter, whether you've been recognized or not recognized, whether you felt like you've had significant impact or not. Know that you have, right? Like, I think part of International Women's Day is looking everyone in the face and being like, you matter.
Absolutely.
Very, very
Absolutely.
true. Absolutely. So, that brings me to the last person that I wanted to highlight. Daniela Truffin, one of our top 10 CEOs to look out for. She's one who couldn't quite get the gist of what she really is good at. She knows that there's more in her, but she doesn't exactly know, and she hasn't been able to like really put that into paper until she went through her story. We have created an interview format of just asking her questions, and through the questions that was asked, it was the questions were given to her, and she had done it in her own time and in her own space, and she just went through the story of her life and realizing that everything that she gets to teach to the next generation, to the next woman, right behind her, two years ago was exactly in her life story. That each of our life story is a blueprint.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Each of our life story is a blueprint of what we get to hand over to the next woman, to the next girl, to the next generation, because our stories teaches a lesson. The struggles that we survived, even the things that we thought are embarrassing that we hide, they all are blueprints for someone's breakthrough, for someone's next level. And it's so powerful because the moment she went through her story, it is so clear, it's so apparent. You could see from her book exactly what her platforms are, what her 7 steps are, what her 8 steps are, because it's her life.
Yeah,
she lived it. And so that goes to say, oftentimes our culture always invites you to buy something new, invest in something else, but really the secret for you to being able to accomplish your true success is being able to take the time to look into your own story, find the answers within you, give yourself the space and the time to go through your own painful things, because the truth is pain teaches more than prosperity does.
The most powerful teacher. Absolutely.
It
hands
is
down.
And it's interesting, your story oftentimes holds your blueprint. A woman, a founder that I've always been so intrigued by her story is a woman named Whitney Wolfe Herd, who's the founder of Bumble. And it's a dating app where women make the first move. Now, Whitney was on the executive team of Tinder before that. And there were a lot of experiences that she had gone through on that team, and just with what the Tinder experience is that she took with her, and she left and her life evolved, and she was frameworking and trying to figure out what is next. If you haven't already, there's an amazing masterclass episode about her story. But she ended up starting Bumble, which reshaped conversations around digital safety and gender dynamics online. She became one of the youngest female CEOs to take a company public, right? On NASDAQ. And it was because of her experiences. Like, had she not had her experience at Tinder, she would have had the experience to actually launch Bumble and think about gender dynamics online and digital safely, and why it may make sense in a world for women to make the first move. And it's not to say it's the only option, but to create an option, right? Oftentimes our story and our experiences, they lay the groundwork for whatever may come next. I mean, we may not know how it'll unfold, but we know that it is unfolding, and what
Right.
happens when we can actually take that glance inward to take a moment to be like and think about it, right? And think about what comes next. And so there are so many women who have sparked a move for more justice, more democracy, more empowerment, more inspiration. I mean, the list definitely goes on, but there are women that are revolutionizing industries just because they're like, I want to create an experience that I was looking for. I mean, even look at Rihanna with Fenty.
Yeah.
Right. And the fact that she was trying to create more inclusive beauty industry standards by including more shades for women to pick from and a focus on high quality products. And look at where that journey has brought her along the line. And this is not like in the 1990s, right? Rihanna was doing this in the 2000 teens, right? And what does that mean when you are looking to be seen? And if you don't see yourself being seen, you step into a space where you can create that, or you can create an experience for you. And a lot of innovation kind of happens in that way.
Right. I'd like to say that you can revolutionize an industry, which is what you just mentioned. And there's nothing less than or less powerful if you are focused or passionate about revolutionizing a family line, like a lineage, a legacy. I've always said that you impact one person's life, you impact their entire legacy, quite frankly, because that's all it actually takes. You impact one person, you change, not that you control it, but they're able to see things or see one thing differently. That one thing differently will then continue to have that ripple effect along their entire legacy from that point on. And it may seem so simple and shallow and lacking depth compared to the things that we've mentioned. But if you really think about it, that can change an entire family line. And it's the impact of revolutionizing any place and space that you are in. And it's going to look different. And it's meant to look different because it's all just opportunity. All the experiences you're mentioning, they're all just opportunities, right? So I just want to add that to it.
No, I think that's powerful. I mean, it makes me think of the 13-year-old that you mentioned. It makes me think of a woman named Marissa Confair. She's the founder of MC Kicks out on the East Coast. And she was in a billboard in Times Square today as one of the top 10 women CEOs to look out for in 2026. And how she started her company is really inspiring and phenomenal in that she was a fashion designer. She's an amazing painter. And one day she decided to paint on a pair of Jordan sneakers, right? And she was like, I'm just going to paint on a pair of Jordan sneakers. She went to a restaurant. When she stepped into the restaurant, she saw a painting that had painted Jordan sneakers. Right. Exactly. That's what I said when I first found out that story.
Cool. Wow.
There happened to be someone in there that she was sharing her experiences with and sharing that synchronicity with and said, wait, I'm going to come back. That person happened to be a family member of a very, very well-known music performer and said, their birthday is coming up. Would you paint a pair of sneakers for them for their birthday?
Well, hey, there you go.
Right.
The opportunity.
That is the opportunity. Next thing you know, those sneakers at the 4 to 40 club for this person's birthday.
Wow.
Right? And that just started a whole experience of expression for her. And, for her, and that person was Fat Joe. And she painted sneakers with Big Pun on them. And it was a dedication piece. Cool. But she uses art as therapy, as a way to connect people with experiences, with their creativity. And she makes a lot of space for women, when she's at events, when she's creating activations, because in the space that she's in, oftentimes people will think the men that she's with are the CEO, founder, and creative director of the brand, because it has to do with sneakers, and not that her, Marissa, is the face of the brand, right? And she works with organizations like the baseball organizations, with the NBA, does fashion week and things like that. But it's like, even in this day and age, right, they just make an assumption that it's a man-led brand and not a woman-led brand. And so she makes it a point to hire women at her events, and it's not because it's a shade against men, but it's about the fact that representation is so important. And I think that's a big part of it too, is that women holding space for other women and knowing that representation is key. And being attributed and celebrated for the work that they do,
Yeah.
right? And also, you never know with one chance, one experience, how that can change the trajectory of your life, of your career. I don't know if Marissa, if you're watching this right now, if she knew that in the moment, but I think her founder story is so beautiful and so unique because it just shows you those kind of synchronicities in life. So,
and I think that just gives me the opportunity to actually invite our viewers to find out more about the stories of the top 10 women CEOs to look out for in 2026. And you can find out about their story by going to thelosangelestribune.com. That's very easy. It's right there, the Los Angeles Tribune. Just put the .com in there, and you will find the top 10 women CEOs to look out for in 2026 and their stories and what they're creating for this year. So we're excited.
Janelle Kelly, Tamara Beth, Marissa, Crystal Lore, Daniela Truffin, Irene, Alyssa, Alexa Janae, Jeanette, so many amazing women.
Joy Vanish
and Joy Vanish Goal. So many amazing women. And so, Ava.
Yes. Well, first of all, I would love to hear your Her Story Unfolding commercial again. If you guys haven't noticed, that commercial is Alicia's voice. So let's hear that, and then we'll come right back for our closing remarks.
Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this. Welcome to a celebration at the precipice of time, where the power of women knows no bounds. Experience Her Story Unfolding, a reawakening of our collective consciousness to the monumental achievements of our foremothers. A tribute to the battles they fought, rights they've secured, and paths they've paved that women all over the world are continuing to navigate and expand upon. Her stories are unfolding, empowering growing, building legacies of pioneering women by sharing their stories, celebrating their accomplishments, and embracing the rights and privileges they've bestowed to us for generations to come.
Her Story Unfolding. And this is such a beautiful journey of women. This is an encouragement and inspiration and empowerment of women just really embracing the fact that our story are still unfolding. So here at the Los Angeles Tribune, you have the three of us women. Isn't it so special that we're actually in person?
I know. No, I love it.
It's so special.
And so us being here, all three, this did not come without effort, just so you know. But there is also a very special thing about today, is because this is also going to be our last broadcast at the Los Angeles Tribune, because her story is always unfolding. And so as we close, Parisa, I want to hear what are your closing remarks that you'd like to give some of the women. And I know that it's probably something that you wrote from your heart, that you'd like to share with us.
Thank you, Ava. So I just want to say, before I read my statement here that I wrote, it's been an honor, a joy, and a beautiful journey. Not getting emotional with the both of you. So thank you, and thank you. I'm a crybaby, and I own it. If you are too, own it as well. Anyway, today I'm reminded that every woman's journey is made up of chapters. Some chapters are about building. Some are about learning. And sometimes the most powerful thing a woman can do is to recognize when a chapter has fulfilled its purpose and courageously step into the next one. For each of us, this year marks a moment of expansion, I will say that. Our work, our leadership, and our impact are evolving in exciting new directions. And we are incredibly grateful for everything that has helped shape the path that brought us here, because her story is not finished.
And I think, one of the beautiful truths about women's journeys is that we are never static. We are never static. We're evolving, we're expanding, we're growing into new seasons of leadership, of purpose, of mission, and of impact. And I think most importantly, too, we grow and evolve into seasons of calling, right? Being called into new spaces. And it's about stepping into next levels of impact and creativity and leadership, and honoring that, growth is so important. Evolution is so important, and that her story doesn't stop. Her story expands. And so I think that is one of the most beautiful things. There's so much we get to do and get to evolve into, and so proud of the work that all of us have done, and each and every one of you have done, and the mission work that's going to continue to happen. You know, her story doesn't stop.
Nope.
Her story doesn't stop, you know.
A story continues. And you know what's powerful about our journey as women is that there really comes a time when we realize that we're ready for the next chapter, because growth demands expansion, because expansion is also required for growth. And so for each of us in here, and for every woman who's watching us on the broadcast, we wanted to encourage you, inspire you, and empower you to courageously step into, you know, your expansion, your opportunities. Today we talked about a lot of opportunities of people who just said yes, who just showed up.
My favorite book, Year Yes, by Shonda Rhimes. And what happens?
And my favorite story that I hear from you is the story of the alchemist, where you learn a lot along the way, but you come back to who you really are and what you have in your own yard. But for each and every one of us, you know, we are all continuing on a new chapter, and this is why we also come together live for you, because this is a very special moment where we tell every woman out there, and of course every man also who follows and loves the Los Angeles Tribune, that there's more. There's greater things, there's expansions, there's opportunities, and we are absolutely grateful for all of the steps that has been put in front of us, that has led us to where we are right now, you know, where we're ready to take the next chapter and the next expansion. Because the truth is, her story continues to evolve,
continues to unfold,
and her story is still unfolding.
That's right.
And so happy International Women's Day.
Yes.
Happy your story is unfolding, whether you're a man, a woman, whomever you identify as. I think one of the beauties of life is that our stories continue to unfold, and sometimes we know where they're going to take us, and sometimes we don't, and oftentimes we're in between. We know where we're going, but we'll allow those synchronistic moments to happen and experience, like with Marissa, or that moment with that young 13-year-old that changed the trajectory of, maybe she will be a pageant baddie, you know, moving forward, doing many shows. And there's so many women in history who have just had a passion, a calling to do something, and they've just stepped forward to do it, and you don't know what the impact is. You don't do it for the impact, you do it because you're called to it, and from there everything else flows. So
you discover it after. You don't actually know anything ahead of time. There's this one thing, that was my final statement. This is actually my final thing I'll say. There's a word that I came across many years ago, and it came from my one of my mentors at the time. And she said that everything in life is perfect. I was like, okay, I don't believe that. Like, not everything in life is perfect, because I could list immediately 100 things that are wrong with this world. And she's like, I'm going to challenge you to think about that everything in life is perfect. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I was so resistant, because it just made common sense to not believe her statement. And she said, but what if you chose to believe that that was true? What would that mean? And what she was really getting at is that everything in life is perfect, is really everything is, you can get to a place of acceptance in life with things. I'm not saying being accepting injustice, but accepting that this is what the moment is showing you right now, and the acknowledgement of, I have choice, I have the power of choice and the decision to do something about it if I choose to. So it's more so unconditional acceptance of what life is, not what life has to stay as, or what life has been. But completely unconditional acceptance of, like, things happen in life, and what's next?
I love that.
So everything is perfect.
Everything is perfect. And, you know, we were talking about the alchemist, but the alchemist, you know, Santiago is on his journey to his personal legend, his personal life treasure. And he's on the journey. He's looking. He gets to the place where he thinks he finds it. And he has this realization. I'm not going to tell you what happens. Phenomenal book. I highly encourage you to read it. But he talks about how it's about the journey, right? Sometimes you're looking at the destination, and it's really about the journey. And I think that's what's so beautiful about even the phrase, her story is unfolding, your story is unfolding, that there's so much that comes with the journey that you're on. And so we want to say, happy International Women's Day. We want to say, we see you, we hear you, you matter, your story is unfolding. You may not know where it's going to take you, but
Yet.
know that just being on the journey is showing you everything you need to know, even if you don't understand where it's taking you. A big part of it is the journey too. So.
Absolutely.
And you're worth good things.
You're worth good things.
Don't
Remember
forget
that. If no
that.
one told you that, we're telling you that
Yes.
today. Happy International Women's Day. We are celebrating women all around the world. We are celebrating the women of the Los Angeles Tribune community. To anyone we have ever featured, ever written about, ever invited to be on a broadcast, has ever spoken at a Barnes and Noble's event,
Any
received
events.
All
an
of the
award
things.
at all of the events. You know, we want you to know that you matter, that your journey matters, that we are championing you, that we are cheering you on. To the 10 women that were spotlit today, we're looking forward to see how your 2026 goes. And that's a call for everyone.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
we're celebrating where you are now, but we can't wait to hear from you at the end of 2026 to hear about what you've been up to, right? Not your impact, but what have you been up to?
Yeah.
You know, so happy Women's International, or happy International Women's Day, rather.
Yeah. Well, in closing, since we're saying, let us know what you're doing and, remind us who you are.
Oh, I am Alicia Magnus Lewis. I'm a visibility architect. I love to spotlight and highlight people and remind people that there's an essence to your presence and it matters.
Ooh, I like that. I needed that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Being in proximity of you is amazing. I'm Paris Rose. I do a lot of different things, but I'd like to say that this last year in particular, being a storytelling ninja is what I will call myself.
Grammy nominated at that.
Peak performance.
Maybe.
Yeah, peak performance. Amazing capacity increasing coach. If you're ever challenged with capacity, she's got a lot.
And who are you, Miss?
Yes.
Well, I am Ava Manuel, and I've always loved public service. I've always loved civil service. I've always loved Los Angeles. When we moved to Los Angeles, we had created the Best of LA, and we wanted to feature the best of LA, back then. And I just love being able to. I feel like LA is such a unique space that really is such a gift to the world. And I think, as I walk into this new chapter, there's an opportunity that I have in serving in the public space of Los Angeles. So I am very, very grateful for each and every one of you. As this is our last broadcast, I would like to thank our CEO, the Los Angeles Tribune CEO, Mo Rock, all of our partners, amazing partners of the Los Angeles Tribune, from our film director
and VP of the Los Angeles Tribune, Donna Campbell, Michael Silvers, who manages the Los Angeles Tribune podcast network, Dr. Emily
Latran, the Jill of all trades.
Karen Hall, who manages the LA Tribune Women's Journal, Michael, who also manages the marketing journal. There are so many partners. There are so many individuals.
It's growing. We've got a Spanish journal now.
Yes, there's a Spanish journal. There is LAT Espanol. There is so much more to come. The Los Angeles Tribune is an amazing brand that's about inspiring, educating, and uplifting. And there's so much happening. There are so many publications, some known, some unknown, that you all are going to be learning about. But it's really about a mission of inspiring, educating, empowering. I'm going to add empowering in there, but uplifting. That is what it is all about. And so we just want to say thank you to all of our partners, thank you to everyone on the team, and thank you to everyone that has collaborated with us, shared their story, planted a seed in this world. Like Deepika says, sparked a soul. There are so many amazing people with so many amazing stories, and it's been an honor to hold space for you all to share. And it's going to be exciting to see what you all continue to do.
Yeah. Thanks for being a part of our journey, guys.
Thank you for being a part of our journey, and we will see you soon. Welcome to a celebration at the precipice of time, where the power of women knows no bounds. Experience her story unfolding, a reawakening of our collective consciousness to the monumental achievements of our foremothers, a tribute to the battles they fought, rights they've secured, and paths they've paved that women all over the world are continuing to navigate and expand upon. Her stories are unfolding, empowering growing, building legacies of pioneering women by sharing their stories, celebrating their accomplishments, and embracing the rights and privileges they've bestowed to us for generations to come.
Welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune page. Here you will find original news programming, exclusive digital events, and shows that are directly from the community. At the Los Angeles Tribune, we believe in giving a voice to the voiceless. We are proud to be the only national brand to empower everyday people to make a difference. Since 1886, our reputation has been built on truth and responsibility. Thank you for watching and making a difference.
For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.